So we don't really like starting late, but sometimes stuff happens,
Stuff happens. Life happens.
right?
Yeah.
You
Life
know,
happens.
one of the things, sweetheart, we were talking about this. I can't, we have so many conversations with y'all, I can't remember. But we know that one of the biggest things that break up couples is financial talks, the money situation, all that stuff, right? How I decided to handle it, because Rick is not my first husband and I'm not his first wife, is I just decided not to talk about it at all. Like if he wanted to spend, I just let him spend and figure it out on the other end.
Same thing.
Kind
Same
of
thing
goofy.
here. Yeah, I mean, well, we were making money and we were doing our things, but we didn't go crazy.
No. We were not fast spenders. And if you don't know what that is, our guests will let you know what that's all about. But wait, we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. My name's Halisi.
And I'm Rick. Welcome to Our Black Utopia.
On our channel, we talk about money, travel, retiring abroad as we build generational wealth, right?
Yes.
All right. So who are our extraordinary guests?
Today, our extraordinary special guests are Julien and Kiersten Saunders, hosts of the Rich and Regular podcast, and also they're authors, y'all. We told y'all to make sure you pick up their book. The book is called Cashing Out. So, without further ado, let's welcome them, y'all.
Yes. Hey, how are you?
Hey, guys.
We're good. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much. And I just heard it's such a small community. This is their YouTube channel, by the way. Let me take that down. This is such a small community. I just heard somebody's going to be the keynote at Exodus Summit.
Yes.
All right now.
I'm so excited about it too. I've been talking to Julien about it ever since I talked to the ladies a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm just so excited for this conference.
It is going to be so good. I got my ticket.
Did you?
I got my ticket. So I'm going to be in there cheering you on, saying, yeah. So this is going to be great. And for all of you who don't know, Exodus Summit is for Black women. And this year's theme is all about money. And so it just kind of ties into what we're talking about today.
You think we can get Stephanie to sneak us in?
Stephanie Perry? No. Men
no men.
Men can't come.
Find something to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I started to say it. I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to the gym.
Right. So we introduced you, but why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us what was the inspiration? This book, I listened to it 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I got notes. I got questions. I'm so excited. So I'll have you introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Julien. This is Kiersten. Our son, Beau, who I am 100% sure you'll meet in about 20 minutes. He's taking his nap. We are online, known as Rich and Regular. It's a brand and platform that we launched in 2017 in our spare time, back when we were working in corporate America. Since then, we've taken that and grown it into a multimedia platform. Our ambition is really to help inspire more Black millionaires. And now it's really about helping to just help more of us cash out. And there's a long list of other things that we aspire to do, shape the culture, all those things. But we do a little bit of everything. We have a podcast. We have a video series. We're getting ready to start a new podcast hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We are hoping to take our video series to a network near you. We are also the recent authors of the book Cashing Out, When the Wealth Game of Walking Away, which was published under Penguin Random House in June of 2022. And that's it for the slashes in the name. Like, I don't know. I don't know what else we can add to the list. But I'm hoping it's television, movies, and film or something like that.
That would be great.
Come a long way from Brooklyn, New York, brother man.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm very inspired for a variety of reasons. One, because we're going on vacation tomorrow, so I'm excited. The whole family's excited. But I just finished watching this documentary about Sidney Poitier, and so I'm like, also like very much inspired by like learning a little bit more about his history and some of the
Yeah.
things that he went through. And so it was really, really, really cool. So I'm in a good space. I'm happy to be talking and meeting with you guys and everyone else that's online.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And where in Texas are you from, Kiersten?
Houston, right outside of Houston. It's a city called Missouri City. But
But basically Houston.
basically Houston, yeah.
I lived in Spring, Texas. That's right outside of Houston.
Oh, yeah. I'm
For a
familiar with
short
Spring.
period in my life.
Yeah, we've got family all across the DFW, like Dallas, Fort Worth area. My dad's family's from East Texas, a really small town called Kennard. Like we're all over the place.
Okay, I love it. Well, let us know if you're watching from the future. Hey, say hi in the comments and let us know where you're logging in from. Let's say hello to a few people before we get started, because Tanisha has been on here literally for 30 minutes. She right? She logged in 30 minutes before we even started. So, hey, Venus, nice to see you from New York. Auntie Trey from the
Auntie
ATL.
Trey, there she is.
Nelson Bowen, here's a new one. Finally made a live. Yay. Welcome. Hey, Chandra. And Winnie, can't wait. House of Portuguese live. We'll talk about that a little bit. Portugal.
we got some stuff.
We're in our new apartment here in Portugal.
Yeah, new background. We don't have bags.
I was about to say
books and all that nonsense.
It's a little different. It's a beautiful park for kids right across the street.
Yeah,
it's just wonderful.
I love it. He still hasn't decided if this is gonna be a 1 year thing or
I'm trying to figure out the steps.
Yeah.
The stairs.
This is Portugal. It's all about the hills. So, hey, Greta is logging in from New York.
Hey, Greta.
We got Vanessa. Can't wait. Oh, y'all put a Q in front of your, because I know you guys like to chat and stuff in the comments. So put a Q in front if you've got a question. Can't wait to see your new place in studio. Thank you. We've got Cubana. We've been talking back and forth. So good to see you on here. Black, hey, Krishan. Hey, how are you?
Doing, Krishan?
Yes. And Anita. Very good, very good, very good. Margaret, we've got Margaret. Hello. Pamela Jones. Hello. How are you guys doing? Love it. All right. So we've got, let's talk. Yes. So let's just get started, because I want to get as many interesting questions in before the boss of the show comes in to tell you what time it is. So if you all have not gotten Cashing Out, Win the Wealth Game by Walking Away, there is a link in the description for you to purchase it today. It is must read. Let me tell you, if you want to figure out how to change your mindset about money, you need to read the book. If you want to get steps on the activities to go, to become financially free or financially independent, you got to get the book. So I want to start with one of the things that kind of stuck out to me. How does the African American culture inhibit our financial growth? Did I start out too deep?
Yeah.
We're starting big.
Yeah, it's a big question, but it's actually not that complicated. Because one, I'll start by saying this is not something that's unique to African American culture. The issue at hand is really something that's unique to American culture as a whole, specifically as it relates to sort of the role that consumerism plays in our culture. But African Americans, right? So as you start to drill down and get a little bit more specific, there are things that shape our culture for sure, that impact the way that we think, impact the way that we pursue careers, impact what we believe is possible, what we think is right, all of those things. And the one sort of key ingredient or component of Black culture that we really wanted to focus on with respect to the book was this idea of Black excellence. This is something that so many of us take pride in. We celebrate, we kind of identify. It is like this abstract sort of target that we are all trying to embody and try to eventually become. But we've been doing this for a pretty long time. And so we dared to ask the question, like, where is the evidence of all of this excellence that we are supposedly full of?
Right.
And so I'm certainly not seeing it with respect to impact. or positive impact on our net worth. And so we really wanted to talk about that because a lot of us seem to be like doubling down and tripling down on it. We're going to work harder at work. We're going to give more of ourselves. And on top of that, we're not going to push back, meaning we go to these jobs. We know that many of these jobs or workplaces, I should say, are toxic for our health. We know that we experience things like racism in the workplace. By the way, not only at the hands of white people, but also people of color, sort of forcing these unfair standards on top of us, which really compounds the stress, makes it even more difficult for us to live our lives outside of work, and so on and so on and so on. And so we dared to ask that question, like, where is all this excellence getting us? And for us, it was getting us this like twitch in the eye that we couldn't get rid of. It was getting me right here in terms of like an inability to maintain a steady regimen. It was getting us, on a one-way track to diabetes and addiction to substance abuse because you're trying to detox from all the stress that work just forces on you, and so on and so on and so on. And so what we really, really found after sort of finding the financial independence movement was that there's actually a lot that we can learn from these people, even though they don't look or act like us. And so we sort of pulled. We just took that. We treated it like a buffet, and we took what we could from that movement, and obviously all of the practical lessons that we could take from it, made it applicable to our community in terms of style, context, and use case. And called it Rich and Regular, right? And now the sort of instruction manual for it is what we're calling Cashing Out. And that's because what we tried to do before just simply wasn't working. I tried to take that content, those stories, and share it with our community, and it simply didn't work because it didn't resonate with our community. And so we really realized that we need to sort of change the dynamic, the story, the covering, if you will, and make it applicable and resonate to our community. So all that to say, like, those are the things, those are the reasons for the book, but also like why we decided to kind of talk about African-American culture and some of those subcomponents that kind of get in the way of how we think about money in our careers.
Yeah, definitely. The whole notion of Black excellence reminds me of the talented 10th. Like, right,
100%.
there's only so many of us that can make it up there, right? Whatever that elusive thing is. And oh well to all the rest of you. I had a boss tell me, Halisi, slave days aren't over. I want you bald and chained to your desk.
What?
Wow.
What?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, like, what do you do with that?
And I think when you ask the question, how does African-American culture inhibit, wealth building? My immediate thought was that it's not the culture, it's racism. It's this idea that we somehow have to work so much harder for half as much. And to your point, we can understand racism on a intellectual level. We can explain it on a systemic oppression level. We can look at all of the stats, but a lot of us aren't familiar of how it manifests when it's internalized. Because to your point, what people do when they hear racist rhetoric like that, when they hear things like that, is they just consume it and say, all right, well, I just got to try harder. I'll just sit here and type out the best emails. We don't know what to do when that voice becomes our own. And it turns into these rallying cries, these habits, these things that we continue to do that, to Julian's point, don't get us the result that we're looking for. And it's time to start saying, like, actually, no, that is problematic. That is something that we should be able to walk away from at any point for any reason. And that's really what Cashing Out is about. It's about building the tools for you to remove yourself from that situation, so that you don't continue to internalize that kind of logic.
Yeah. And in my, I was in my mid-20s and maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out of college. Girl, I didn't know what to say, what to do.
Yeah, I've been there.
But I made note of it. And y'all, when I decided to leave that job, they gave me about 6 months pay. And I quit, and they gave me 6 months pay because they knew they didn't want me to sue them. And they did not want me to sue them. So, I mean, goodness gracious. And so my second question was your thoughts on Black excellence, but you kind of wrapped that in to your answer. And I think just in this last year or two, we decided to just Black excellence, like,
Good for you.
because my hair was falling out. I was losing weight. I had back pain. I mean, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
this does not feel excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exhausting.
And so, yeah.
So you want me to ask this one?
Go ahead.
How does a couple have a healthy discussion about money?
It depends, right? I think one of the mistakes that couples make, or even just partners in life make, is that they try to tackle money conversations like a marathon. They try to just rush through everything from budgeting to legacy planning to investing to short-term goals, long-term goals, all in one conversation. Versus little bitty conversations over time, where you're just addressing what we're going to do with the $500 this week. We're just addressing what we're going to do with this unexpected bill. We're just addressing how we're going to set up our emergency fund, versus trying to like rush through it and get it over with. And I think part of that is just the anxiety that comes from this idea of having an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
So that you try to rush through it instead of recognizing that money's always going to be the third wheel in your relationship. And so you might as well welcome it in. You might as well create a seat for it at the table, make room for the conflict that's going to come, make sure that you have methods and practices for how you handle disagreements. And then over time, you start to realize like where your sweet spot is with these financial conversations. But it's really an exercise in trial and error, just like many other topics that come up along a long-term relationship. But it starts with just the little things, consistent, small conversations over a long period of time.
Yeah, I would also call out a really important point and this is because we get these types of questions oftentimes, but like in the process of trying to help people think through how to have healthier conversations about money with their partner, we sort of see obviously some patterns. And one of the biggest patterns that we see is people kind of looking at the absence of conflict as a marker of success, right? And so when we talk to people about having these sort of healthy conversations, it's like, well, we don't argue about money, so we don't
even talk about it.
We don't even talk about it.
You're not going to argue about money if you don't talk about it. You know what I mean? So like that, but that's not necessarily a win. More often than not, like, it could also be, in fact, in most cases, it's really an indication that you're not growing, right? Because ideally, anytime you're growing, you should experience some conflict. You should have to revisit some things that you've previously agreed upon, or have to learn new skills or new ways of thinking or new financial vehicles, right? Because now it's applicable to the new moment or new space in your life. And a lot of people, I think, are just kind of trained because they're thinking about talking about money is going to lead to an argument. If I'm not arguing, that must mean we are good at talking about money. And it's like, well, actually, no, like you got to get good at sort of having a conflict, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, right? Like just because you're disagreeing, it's not a bad thing. It can actually be quite revealing and can lead to exactly the outcome that you're looking for, which is health, right? You need something to sort of pressure test your understanding or your compatibility or whether or not you're on the same page. So yeah,
that's for sure. And you might want to have the conversation earlier than later, folks. Don't do it like we did it. Don't do it like we did it.
Yeah, we get that question too, like when should you? And it was like as early as possible, right? Like
yes.
as early as possible, literally, because in many cases you're kind of dancing around the subject anyway. You know what I mean? But like you're talking about money. It's hard not to talk about something that does not have a financial implication. So I strongly recommend, okay, I'm sorry. Our son is building something that looks like he about to hurt himself. So I get him. We're not doing that. Hold
on. He's on the edge of the couch about to jump off.
Oh my God.
I remember those days. I remember those days. I remember saying, don't, stop. No, stop. Boom. You know, it's inevitable.
I'm trying to avoid. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So I just want to say hello to a few more people that made it in. Jackie Johnson, hey there. Your best friend Ron is in the house.
Ron. Yeah, we're okay, Ron.
So today is Rick's birthday.
Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And last night we were out celebrating my birthday.
Definitely.
And had a car accident.
In the Uber.
in the Uber, somebody ran the red light and smack dab hard. They did not brake. They did not do anything. Nobody was hurt.
Thank God.
Yeah,
It was
and
pretty
I
bad.
just watched the whole thing coming, and it's like, oh my God,
Here
we're
we
gonna
are.
get hit. And
It was pretty crazy. It took forever for the cops and everything. I
Yeah.
think I have a little bit of whiplash, but interestingly, the second thing I started thinking about was, insurance. What if this had been more serious? If this were in the States, we'd be bankrupt, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
if somebody would have gotten hurt and we were in the States, we'd be bankrupt because it's just Bed-Stuy or die. That's funny. Because just getting sick in America can be bankrupting.
Yes.
Sure.
Regardless of if you have
Very
insurance or not. Like
Yeah.
Regardless,
it's
you
it's one of the things that keeps me very interested in looking at an international lifestyle, or at least being location independent, because like there's so much you can't control. And I know that, and like I accept that as a spiritual and
Yeah.
mental exercise. But
Right.
there's some things that just feel like we should have some way to mitigate against it. And even though you do all the right things of having health insurance and finding good doctors and telling the ambulance exactly where to take you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. It definitely doesn't matter. And which is one of the reasons why we're here.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we're here. So I kind of want to start talking. I love the term that you guys came up with. I don't know if you came up with it, but I first heard it from y'all. So I'm giving you credit. Stealth wealth.
Yes, that is not an original term, but we felt the same way the first time we heard it. Yeah.
So tell us more about that. What does that mean to you? And how can I've been using it as a mantra every time I see something I want. No, Halisi. You're in the stealth wealth. You don't need everybody else to see you rocking that blah 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 whatever it was.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to you?
I think for me, it just separates the wealth you can see versus the wealth that you don't or can't. And so for us, it is a bit of a mantra to make sure that we're always making sure that we're not falling for the flash and the exorbitance. That's not to say I don't like nice things or I don't ever buy something that has a label on it. It's not meant to be that prescriptive or restrictive,
Right.
but it is this idea of a holistic wealth, a holistic wealthiness, right? It's internal health, it's mental clarity, it's making sure that the things that you buy have some sort of utility and they're not just there to have and scratch some ego itch. It's really just about recognizing that a lot of the wealth that we see, a lot of the definition, the way that the media defines wealth isn't actually wealth. It's consumerism. It's things. It's meant to be status signifiers. It's not meant to be something that actually enhances your life or improves your quality of life. And a focus on self-wealth makes sure that I have like that barometer, that litmus test to make sure that whatever I'm looking at is something that's going to enhance my life in many, many ways.
I love it. I love it. By the way, you did an excellent job in reading the book. I don't know. Whatever you call it. You guys did an excellent job. Yes. I mean, entertaining and the inflections and everything had me laughing. So, a professional reader could not have done a better job. Could not have done a better job.
Thank
so,
you.
and I am an audiobook queen. How long, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, like I would consume about 15 per week.
Wow.
I have readers that I will listen to a book just because they're reading it.
Wow.
So I say that to say, I'm one of those little snobby, and y'all rocked it. Y'all rocked it.
Well, that means a lot coming from you. I'm not an audiobook listener, but it's been interesting because over half of our book sales have been through audiobooks.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by that. I had been reading the research about how Black listeners are like the leading growth demographic for podcasts, and like how radio is still in 97% of Black households. Like I knew Black folks and audio had a relationship, but I did not expect it to translate to our book. And it's been interesting to meet all of the auditory learners along the way, like at the book tour, because they didn't have nothing for us to sign. I was like, dang, we should have brought some earbuds or some sort of like giveaway,
Right.
a little keepsake for our audio listeners. But
I didn't think about that.
It's inspired me to try it. Is my
I'm gonna have to buy the hard copy too. So when I see you, I can get my signatures. So right. So let's talk about this 15-year career. Both from a standpoint, our demographics, our average demographics is 45 to 65, interestingly. So, and listening to the book, some of the folks you're talking about are, recent graduates. And if you're, 26, 27, 25, 22, whatever, stopping that career by 37, being financially independent, and then doing whatever you want to do after that. Gosh, had I even come up with that, that would have been amazing. But it was too late. By the time we heard about, oh, you can save your way to this, you can invest your way to this. You don't have to get the big book deal or the TV deal or, because that I'm from Hollywood. So, I was waiting for the contract. I'll get my finances together when I sell the script.
That was me.
Right.
I'm just waiting on insert thing here, insert milestone.
Right.
Get that record deal.
God's going to come down. He's going to do this and do that and do this. And I just have to show up. Right.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the 15-year career. Why did you guys come up with that? What's that about? And how is that helpful?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally exactly as it sounds, right? I mean, it is the blueprint, and we decided to come up with it because these are the types of questions that we would get from people whenever we would introduce these concepts to them. But it was also like as we started to think about it, and I don't know if we mentioned this in the book or not, but it really sort of sprung from this conversation that we had with a reporter who asked that question. They were like, "Well, how long should a career be?" And I was like, I never thought about how long, right? I mean, It makes sense if you can sort of quantify how long it would be until you might anticipate, having X amount of dollars in an investment portfolio, then you might be able to back out of that and say, well, this is how much you could have or expect your career to be. And so that was really the first time, I think that was a couple of years ago, where we thought about it. And it was such a simple question. I was like, well, I don't know that anyone's ever tried to answer it. But what we do know is that a lot of people just sort of go into their careers believing genuinely that they will always be willing to work, that there will always be work that pays them as much as they're earning now, if not more. Like we are wildly optimistic about our work process.
Yes.
And even though there's very limited evidence to suggest that this works for the vast majority of Americans. Like we would not be in a retirement crisis that we're in, if not in part, like we were a bit more realistic about the likelihoods that we would earn and then be willing and able to save more money as we got older. But somehow so many of us still kind of believe it. And so we said, well, let's give people a blueprint, right? And 15 years sort of felt right, not just because of our own experience, but because of some of the other experiences of people that we've met along the way. And so and each of them took a multitude of different paths, right? Some people really doubled down on real estate. Some people really doubled down on sort of new economies and in business. Other people are purely kept it simple and said, I'm not going to overcomplicate my investing. I'm literally going to live on as little as possible. And I'm going to invest in a total stock market index fund, in every single coin in the couch, every single raise, every single gift, every single dollar saved, I'm just going to throw at it. And it just so happened that she was able to do that during one of the longest bull markets. And as a result, she's a beneficiary of all of that growth while having very minimal impact on her net worth. And so it really just sort of made sense for us. It was like, wow, I wish more of us would do that. But I also think it goes back to your earlier question with respect to the Black community. And it's because so many of us are so obsessed with this idea of excellence and being great and doubling down at work. Yet so many of us sort of hit that middle-aged point and then we are just completely frustrated. Right. You know this because we go to the barbecues and we go to the baby showers and we go to the gym and we meet and we know that practically every single one of these happy hour conversations are just complaining sessions where everyone is talking about how much they hate their jobs, right? So let's do something about it, right? And that's really what we wanted to do. It was like, all right, well, let's inspire people, but also give them a bit of a flexible blueprint that they can follow. And I think, to your point, it's obviously easier for someone who is coming, let's say, straight out of college or something like that, and then sort of saying, well, 15 years from now, this is where I want to be. It's a bit more difficult if you're already like in your 40s or 50s. You might have children, you may have other financial obligations, you know, you might have more struggles around, you know, in terms of transferability of certain skill sets that you have, etc. But let's just be honest, like, it's still possible, right? It just requires you to sort of make a little bit more difficult decisions, right? You might have to downsize, which just that alone, like just the act of downsizing, or even something as simple as saying, you know, forget all these other complicated things. I am 45, 50 years old. I still have a car note that is probably $400 or $500 a month that I have just to have a car, right? If you just focus on eliminating that car note, reallocating that towards debt and or investments, you're going to have a significant impact on your net worth, like just those things, right? So yeah, that's why we decided to sort of think about it, because we never thought about it before until someone asked us, and then we thought about all the conversations that we had and our own experience, and said, well, let's call it something. And we, in 15 years, sounded like a really good number. By the way, all of the examples in the book and our own experience, these are people who are able to do it in less than 15 years. Less than 15 years.
Right.
And most of the people that we've met that have read the book have actually said, you know, I never thought about that. I'm on that mark. We met a guy just at a conference in Orlando, and there was like, he was doing the math and was like, actually, yeah, I've been at it for about 12, 13 years. So we really, you know, like 15 is really just like a nice, comfortable round number. But realistically, we actually know that there are very many people who can do it in less time. And so it was, we added a little bit of cushion there, but 15 years sounded better than 12 and a half.
I mean, everyone that we've come in contact with who has fired has done it in less than 15 years.
Yes.
Once they made their mind up,
correct.
Then it was, you know, and then it was, I mean, well, Christina Naman, who you mentioned, 8 years, right? Someone else that I know, 5, 6 years, right?
We talk about the magic of compound interest when it comes to the stock market, but the same is true when it comes to your habits and your behaviors. Like, we like to think that the journey is very linear, but it's not. By the time you hit year 4 or 5 and things become a habit, and you can look at something you really, really want and know that thing gonna be on sale in 9 months, or I can look on eBay and find it, or I have one like that at home that I bought 2 years ago that I don't want. It becomes so much easier. It's not the same lift as it is in year 1, in year 7 or 8. And that's when you really start to accelerate. But the hard part is getting people to hold on long enough till it becomes habit. It's not as quick as, it's very similar to working out. Like, when you're in your 20s and you start working out, that stuff just drops off. Your mid-30s and your metabolism kicks in and hormones change. Like, it takes a little longer. But if you can do 4 to 6 months of working out, then you start to see like a difference. And the same is true with these tiny habits, with your investment portfolio, with the small changes you want to make in your life. It's not linear. It may all come at like the last half of the journey, but like, you got to hold out long enough to get there.
Right.
Yeah. I have heard of people stopping just before and saying, this is not working.
I know. It's interesting. All of the data has come out around, like, you know, there in 2020, there was all these new investors that entered the market. It was the largest cohort of new investors that entered the market in 2020, and a large portion of them were Black. Well, now it's 2022, hyperinflation, crazy markets, more layoffs, and a large number of people are closing accounts or selling off their stocks. And the majority of them are millennials.
Oh, millennials.
Not Gen X, not Gen Z, not boomers. They're holding on. But like that 30-year-old generation, you know, the youngest millennial at this point is like almost 30. So these are not super young people, but they've given up. And it's like, oh man, I wish you could have just like held on for a couple more years. A couple more years would have made all the difference in like something that you believed in 2 years ago that got tough. and you just need to keep going.
Yeah. They didn't go through 2008.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And that's such an important point on so many levels. But like even now, like I'm 42, and I've just I remember telling Kiersten, because I was looking at we got our sort of quarterly, or I don't know how many times they send. I think it's a quarterly, but you get your prospectus from like all your funds that you're invested in.
Right.
And they typically talk about, investing in like these 10-year periods, and it's 2022, and then it was looking back at 2012, and I was like, wow, like I was like, now I understood or sort of processed the information differently.
Right.
Because I'd gone through that entire, it wasn't like prior years where I was like, oh man, if only. I was like, well, no, like I was invested even before 2012, and I was just looking at it. And again, like this is a part of investing, right? That you can't learn until you go through it. Like you got to know what it feels like. You can't, I think we talk about that in the book too. Like you can't read a book about losing weight. I mean, you can, but that's not going to explain to you like what it actually feels like.
I
to
think
go
we
through
said
the process.
boxing. Like you don't read
You
a
gotta
book
know
about
what it
boxing
feels
to
like.
learn
Right.
how to fight.
You know what I'm
To
saying?
take a punch.
You gotta
Take a
know
punch.
what it feels like. I know what 2008 felt like, and so like I'm not even thinking about whatever moment we're in right now. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. To somebody's point around like, how do we think about this hyperinflationary or the threat of a recession? Like, I'm at a point now where I'm embracing this risk. I'm excited about it because I've been here before. And so this is a part of sort of building your investment portfolio, is not just knowing what it is, but also like what it feels like, and knowing how to act and what to react to, what like not to waste a bunch of money on, because you know what's possible 10 years from now.
Right. Well, when the FIT hit the sham in 2008, remember we started looking at our money going down, right? And well, it wasn't investment account, it was retirement account. But I didn't know what to do anyway. And it's a 401k, so you can't sell.
Yeah.
So thankfully.
Yeah.
Because God only knows. But and then it went kind of up, and then it went back down again, right? 2012, 2013, then it started climbing. I did not know what to do, so I was like, well, and I never thought I'd be able to retire anyway. So I just left it alone. And I'd add some to it, and I left it alone. I was like, I guess it'll come back up, because it wasn't real. It wasn't mine. It was money that was taken out of my check before I got it. I didn't, and so when I look back, I was like, damn, Halisi, it's amazing that we made it to this far, because I was kind of an idiot. Or just ignorant. Right? Just ignorant. Just didn't know, right?
You didn't know, yeah. And listen, you're not the only one. We talked to a group a couple of weeks ago, and there were two people who both had not looked, knew they were participating in a retirement account. Neither one had looked at it. And it was a tale of two stories, truly. One woman decided to look and realized after contributing for 15 years to this retirement account that none of her money was invested. She actually had not
allocated it.
Right.
She had not allocated it. It was just sitting there in money market. So she missed the entire bull run. She's corrected it now. And then there was another man who had invested it and hadn't looked at it and realized like, snap, I actually have enough to retire right now. And it was wild seeing that these two colleagues in the same building, same financial webinar, conference, whatever, that lunch and learn that we were at, had done the same actions, but both didn't know, but one ended up way better than the other. And so it just reminds you of like how much of a literacy gap that we have, and how important it is to start talking about these things beyond just like get a 401k. It's like, I think people are ready for like the next step, which is check it regularly, reallocate, make sure that things are set up the way that you want them to do, check for fees.
Fees.
Yeah. Right? So it's like, it's you're not alone, even now.
Mocha Mosaic says, listen, I'm well past the 15-year mark, but am about to figure out how to be out in the next 5 years.
Yes, you can do it, Mocha.
You can do it. You can do it. Absolutely. Okay, so Greta asks, what are your thoughts on the stock market dropping and inflation increasing? More investment opportunities?
Yeah, look, it sounds, Greta, sounds like you have the answer, right? You're looking for some validation here. So I'm all for it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly where we are, right? I mean, to Helicia's point, it goes up, it goes down, but over time, it mostly goes up. You
Goes
know what I
up.
mean? And so as
Right.
we're looking at opportunities to invest, we also don't have to overcomplicate it. You can just buy more of what you already have, assuming you're happy with how that fund or the portfolio that you have has been producing for you. But you also have the opportunity to say, hey, what have I learned over the last 5 or 10 years, right? And so if you have enough right now to the point where you're secure, part of, I think, sort of achieving certain levels of financial freedom are really about reevaluating your relationship with risk. And so if you want to play a little bit more aggressively, you owe it to yourself to say, well, I wonder what it would feel like if I played a little bit more aggressively, even if it does cost you a little bit more in terms of fees. So if you're comfortable doing that, I think now is a really great time to do that. You just have to make sure that like the news on a day-to-day basis is really not relevant. It's they're there to keep you thinking, to helpfully motivate you to do something, to sell one thing, to buy another thing. But by and large, it's not like news in the purest sense.
It's not news.
Where it's there to help you.
Political theater.
Correct.
It is
You have to learn.
a part of
the more you know, the more you ignore that stuff, and you just look at it as hype. You understand exactly what it is, and you just you pay attention to the historical perspective and say, this is my job. I've got an extra $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever the amount is for you. And you say, I'm willing to bet that when this sector comes back, it's going to be amazing. And you look at this as an opportunity to be ecstatic. Now, inflation is a completely different thing. I think,
but we've been here before too.
We have. Well, we have. I have.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have or not, but this is where I think this is a great opportunity to learn new skills, right? And even that does not have to be complicated. Like, this might be an opportunity to say, you know what, these are the little things that I'm going to do to help, reduce my cost of living in my home. And it may mean that you finally cut the cord. The simple things like just cutting the cord and overcoming sort of the discomfort with technology and figuring out how to use a streaming service or something like that could save you $100 a month. Like just that.
Yes.
Just that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so it's like automating that, sending it to a robo advisor, playing a little bit more aggressively. Just those two things could be the difference. You having an extra $100,000 or $250,000 in 20 years, you know what I mean? And so like that's the way that I look at it. And I would say that's a really, really great solution to sort of combat inflation. But like it's really about making more, or at least continuing to get by with what you have, learning how to cook or learning how to cook new things.
Right.
Buying a freezer.
They've got a cookbook on a budget. Go to their website, Rich and Regular.
Yeah, it's the little things. It's the little things. It's not the complicated, super financial jargon things that CNBC and Wall Street Journal, like those things are important for some people, but for everyday Americans, for most folks, this is really, really simple stuff. It's much more about sort of daily habits and being consistent, and finding a balance between those things, but also enjoying life in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I think we know the answer to, and we somewhat know a basic answer, but getting your take on it, what is the purpose of income?
We have a whole chapter on this. Great question. The purpose of income is to buy your time back. Is to lead you to time freedom, to independence. And the way that you do that is by giving your income a purpose. And it's deeper than creating a budget and sticking to it. Budgets are great. Budgets are a wonderful tool. But the purpose of income, it comes with a layer of intention that really helps people stay focused on what the end goal is. Again, so much of what we're up against as marginalized people is beginning something with the end in mind. For a long time, for hundreds of years, we were robbed of creating our own endings, right?
Yes.
Things just ended. We just died in horrific ways. We were robbed of our ability to craft the way that we want our story to end. And so when it comes to income, you know that your income earning years, at least this is how it used to be. It's not the same now if you have the right mix of skills and investments. But your income earning years is a finite period of time. There was an article from The Atlantic that just came out that said our careers only are 1/8 of our life. 1/8. It's just a small little season of time. And
Wow.
so when you can give that income a purpose over that time, so that when you're done exchanging time for money, you actually have something to live off of. That's really what establishing a purpose for your income is to say, like, I know what my enough line is. I know what I'm going to do with every single dollar that comes into my house. I'm going to put it to work so that in 20 years, 15 years, however long it takes you, it's working for me instead of me working for it.
I love it. I love it. So Adelia Borshade of Picky Girl Travels the World, she says, give every dollar a job.
Yes.
It,
And become a manager of your dollars.
One of the things that you said in the book that says, if you don't have a purpose for your money, somebody else will.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's probably your subconscious saying, but look at those Coach bags. They're on sale. They're on sale. I'm going to save I'll save so much money by buying them now. Right?
It was our nod also to like our own professional experience. And so, prior to doing what we do now, we were in marketing at a high level. And one of the things that you learn is that marketers are really, really good at what they do. We're still marketers now, right? That we're really good at what we do. And especially today with all the droves of data that we have in social media. I'll give you an example, and in fact, not an example. I'll give you a prediction. Our son just left daycare, transitioned to kindergarten, and when we left his daycare, we had the option of downloading photography and video that they take every single day while he was at daycare. And so, like, just that alone, we're talking about my son for the first 5 years of his life. There was footage of all of these things, right? And as my wheels started turning, I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly where this is going, right? I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but they know when he first fell in love with whatever his favorite color is. They know when he first fell in love with a particular car model, because they don't just make regular cars anymore. It's like, no, he knows this is a Mustang. He knows that this is a Jeep. You know what I mean? And so now when you think about advertising, a car advertisement to our son will be hyper specific. It will be his favorite song. It will be his favorite car. It will be in his favorite color.
And it'll be him in the ad.
It will be him or somebody that he looks
just like him.
That looks like him, the tone of the voice. All of those things will be so hyper specific. And some of that is happening right now. Yeah. And so I think that's important because so many of us really believe that like
I'm making my own decisions.
You're actually not. Many of us aren't. You know what I mean? Many of us aren't.
This is where mindfulness comes in, where you're auditing your thoughts to be like, is that mine or did somebody put that there?
And your willpower isn't actually nearly as powerful as it used to be because there's so many competitive forces sort of beating it down every single day. On average, Americans are exposed to anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 advertisements a day. So we're constantly bombarded with enticing, hyper-specific, relevant advertisements every single day. And so it's natural that over time you feel like you want something and you just get stuck in this cycle of always wanting more. It's not even
it doesn't feel like a want though. It feels like a need.
Correct.
I have to
deserve.
have it.
I have to have it.
I have to have it.
Correct.
I'm not.
Right. I worked so hard.
That's what it creates in you.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to undo that. That's a lot of the questions that we get from people are around all of the things that they've internalized that they have to have. And it's like, well, how do I do this around these things? And it's like, well, you gotta dig a little deeper and go to that list of must-haves and say,
right,
do you really need 3 cars? Do they all have to be brand new?
Yeah.
Do you really need 6 extra bedrooms when there's only 3? Like it's little stuff.
Yeah. It's not just the luxury items. It's all the little things too.
It is all of the little things. I think when we were talking, I told you guys, I was buying a dress and thinking as I was trying it on, yeah, so-and-so ain't gonna be able to say you wore that dress last year when I pull up in this, right? And like, I'm thinking, I don't even like her.
Right.
Because anybody that I like wouldn't have said, oh, that's a cute dress. Didn't you wear that at the gala last year? Like my friends wouldn't say that.
No. And
Right?
anybody who's checking your wardrobe like that got a different, like if you're cataloging my outfits, like get a hobby, sis.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And just getting over the Joneses,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know? So you guys wrote a letter to the middle class.
Yeah.
We read that. I wrote a letter to the Joneses breaking up saying, y'all on my SHIT list now, and I don't want anything to do with you. Because I guess, you know, as a former marketer as well, and when I think of all the advertising, all of that input, and then the notion of Black excellence and the notion of white being the standard, the default, and comparing myself against that, and then, oh, my parents did this and they were the first Black this and the first Black that, so I got to be, you know, and then my sons got to be, and so
Mhm.
and our daughters have got to be, right, and we're stressing everybody the F out to meet a standard
Mhm.
that is nearly impossible in a system that is designed to keep us down, to
Yep.
not let us succeed. And then we wonder why we're sick.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Y'all, you know, if you guys like this conversation, please subscribe, give a thumbs up,
Yeah.
go over there and subscribe to Rich and Regular, because these are the conversations that we need to have to change our mindset so we can stop saying, must be nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Must be nice. Rick and Halisi over retired in Portugal. Must be nice.
It's nice. It is nice.
It is nice.
But we're not the only ones that can do it.
And we're not special.
No, there's nothing special. It's just a mindset. You
Yeah,
have to start there.
we just regular. We ain't rich
That
yet,
was
but we
so important.
regular.
Y'all rich. Y'all rich. But that is exactly why we put the regular in the name, because we didn't want people to write us off as like, oh, they're just exceptional, or oh, they're
They're
incredible.
the Oprahs, right? Like,
it's like, listen, the same investments that I put my money in are available to literally anyone.
That's right.
No minimum investment. You got $10, you can invest in the same things that I invest in. You got $1, you got $10,000. It's open. Like there's the barriers to entry where you have to wait to be selected or picked or chosen aren't really there anymore. And so we have this window. I call it a window because I know what time it is on the world clock. And I know that some of the liberties that we're enjoying now will be snatched away once many of us get a hold of them. But we have this window where we can participate in the same asset classes as our white peers have done for decades. And that's rare. Like there was a time where we couldn't do this. And so to not take advantage of it and see what happens feels like a risk to me. It feels like a greater risk than putting some money in and possibly, you know, needing to go back to work at some point.
Mhm.
What you just said is real. And one of the reasons why we're in Portugal today, as opposed to 2 years from now, which was my plan, is because he said that's not promised, right? Like the blue passport and the privilege that we get with it, that's today, not tomorrow.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The world changes constantly.
It sure does.
It
And
changes
so
constantly.
you just don't know. You just don't know. And I remember, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, like if you didn't show up at a brokerage firm with at least a minimum of $5,000 to start your account,
Yes, you could not open one.
You couldn't open one. Guys, the time is today. The time is now. Now.
The same is true for fractional investing, right? If you didn't have enough for a whole share, you couldn't buy any part of the share.
A share.
Now, if you only got enough for a tenth of a share, like
you can buy it.
You can buy it, and you can work your way up to having.
That's right.
And this, we also talk about technological literacy as a kissing cousin to financial literacy, because a lot of these enhancements that we're talking about came after 2008, when the banks lost all of consumer trust and technology. Silicon Valley came in and was like, all right, well, we'll just give people the technology that we've been giving tellers and and bank brands for years. We'll just give it to them directly through mobile apps and allow them. And so it removed the middleman, which is what enabled all of this cool and easy ways of investing, right? And so when you think about what's going to come out of this period, whatever we call this 5-year period, it's going to be extreme innovation in some areas. Maybe it could be the labor agreement where people can work remotely or work from anywhere. But there's also going to be restriction in other areas, like your ability to travel between borders, your ability to live in one place and pay taxes in another. You just have to know that it's coming, because that's how it works to keep people incentivized to work.
Historically, that's what's been happening.
And take advantage of the windows of opportunity. As I call them, the woo moments. Windows of opportunity. It's a woo. Like
I love it. I love it. Woo, 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 woo. Seriously, folks. Seriously. There was a time we couldn't do this. Yeah. When Rick and I were like, maybe even your age, Kiersten, it was especially Rick, it was unavailable.
It was unavailable.
So like I have to, so folks who are 55 and over, give yourself a little bit of grace, because besides a 401k, some investments account were just out of your reach. If you know, and we were saving, and did not understand the concept of it losing money every day it was sitting in that account, you know. So our daughter just bought your book.
Thank you.
You could have read ours.
Could have shared the password.
Yeah, but we're proud of you. We are so proud of you. Yeah. Chandra asked, please speak on the beauty of Coast or Barista F.I.R.E. Yes. And let's just talk about what F.I.R.E. is. If there is anyone who is new, anyone who just tuned in, hey, say hello. We are talking to Kiersten and Julien of Rich and Regular and the authors of Cashing Out. And we're talking about F.I.R.E., financial independence, retire early. I'm not sure that we are considered retired early, but we did retire earlier than we ever thought we could. Yeah. So we retired early.
Cashed out.
Right? So we retired early as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, so yeah, speak on the beauty of Coast F.I.R.E.
The beauty. Well, let me define it first. So Coast F.I.R.E. is like this in-between state. So there's like different levels of financial or FIRE, financial independence. Coast F.I.R.E. is one that's like right in the middle, where basically you have front-loaded your retirement portfolio.
For your traditional retirement.
For your traditional retirement, right? So full or traditional financial independence would be when you have 25 times your annual spending in an investment account, or like a combination of that in real estate, and you can essentially live off of your investments and or businesses, or some combination of the two. But Coast F.I.R.E. is sort of like, if you know you need, let's say, $1 million to retire, you are at the point right now where it's 2022, and you know that you have enough where by the time you reach your traditional age, without adding another dollar, you will have enough to accomplish that particular goal. And so it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's a really appropriate goal for the vast majority of people, because again, it goes back to our wild optimism with respect to work. Like many of us, it's safe to say, in your 40s, like I was tired in my mid-30s, right? By my mid-30s, I'd already been working close to 20 years. I remember going through graduate school full-time while working 2 jobs. I was tired. So by the time I got to my mid-30s, I was already exhausted. Then you add a child on top of that, you're tired. Now you've got competition coming from all sides. You've got the stress of dealing with a child, maybe multiple child. If you're like 40% of Americans, you're also part of the sandwich generation. And so that same job, that same income, you've got to think about yourself. You've got to think about your partner. If there's someone else in the picture, you got to think about your children, however many they are. And on top of that, you have to like consider what's going to happen with mama, because she is very ill prepared for her own retirement, right? So this is where the stress and the fatigue and the mania, and quite honestly, the midlife crisis sort of comes from. Yeah. And so when you redesign your money and your investing approach, and you really focus heavily on making sure that you have enough in your retirement. Now you can transition away from a world where you are working and grinding in your 40s or your 50s to being able to pull back and say, all right, well, now I'm in a good place. I've developed some good habits. Now I can decide to pursue this creative pursuit or this passion, or I can go and work for a different part of the organization that isn't so high stress, or I can leave this industry altogether because there's not a quiet corner in it. I can go on to do more meaningful work. Maybe I really always wanted to work for a nonprofit because they are working towards fighting this social justice issue that I'm deeply passionate about. Or you can go be a photographer full time, and you're not so obsessed about making six figures or making this amount of money because you don't need it.
You're just coasting until you hit your retirement age.
Correct. You're just coasting.
You're covering your bills.
You're good. Right?
Your check ain't got to do 8 things because you've already saved for your future self.
Correct.
Right.
So you're just kind of like enjoying the moments. To Julian's point, if you want to take a sabbatical, you can just save up for it using your paycheck and then live for 9 months without working, and then maybe find another job, and then decide what you're going to do for the next 3 years. Like you're just kind of coasting along until you get to that magical age where you can look at that retirement account that's been, compounding for 2 decades or so, and then you live. Like it's a beautiful life.
It's like easing into it's like you actually get to ease into a form of retirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And, I think that is the most realistic goal, the most attainable goal for sure for the vast majority of working professionals. And I think that really needs to be the target, but it requires you to take a strong look at how you spend your money today, and to stop subscribing to these blanket rules of thumb. So many people are following this traditional model of saving 10 to 15, even though the vast majority of people can't even do that. But we actually need to be a little bit more aggressive, and you will reach a point eventually, especially over a 10, 15-year period, where you will have enough. And once you do that math, you get to say, well, actually, I don't, like, just imagine a world where you don't have to save anymore. You don't have to save for retirement anymore, right?
Ooh, yes.
Like that is a really, really advantageous position to be in. And I think it, more than anything, is such a helpful, like just from a stress standpoint, you can just coast. Hence the term.
And you can help people. Yes. And you can do all the things that you wanted to do.
Right.
I remember when I realized we were at that point, and my stepmother has been one of my mentors and has helped teach me how to invest. She started investing in the 90s when you had to have that $4,000 or $5,000 to open an account, and that was the least amount because Fidelity was talking about $25,000.
I was about to say 5 is generous.
Yeah, that was Schwab. That was Charles Schwab back in the day, had one of the lower ones, right? And so, talking about the millionaires next door, that's my stepmother, and she's been aggressively investing since then. And she's like, Lisa, you need to start investing. Get that money out of that savings account and start investing in it. And I'm like, in what? And she creates her own little index funds or mutual funds because she just studies it. I'm like, I ain't got time for that. So, homie ain't got time for that. So we 90% in the index funds, right? But that even is still a little aggressive for some folks. But you do what you have to do. Yeah. Can we please go through all the questions? There are many in the chat waiting. Thanks. Oh, that was a question. You need to put a Q in front of it, y'all, because I am scrolling through and I don't see a lot of Qs. So I have a lot of savings bonds. Oh, you do? Okay. Should I cash them in and add to the market or keep some cash?
I'm not a financial advisor. Neither is Kiersten.
I don't have enough information.
But I do think
and nor are we.
But I do think it's safe to say, and I would say very similar to, I believe her name was Greta, we field a lot of questions over the years, and more often than not, the answer is embedded in the question. It sounds to me like you already understand how compounding interest works. It sounds to me like you already know, because it's stated in the savings bound, what interest or yield you're supposed to get for that savings bond.
Right.
And I think it's pretty safe to say that if you look at what that number is relative to what the historical return is in the stock market, and certainly what something like a simple total stock market index fund has done over the last 10 years, I think you know the answer to that question, right? So I'm here to give you license to use the information that you already have and what you already understand and say yes. I would also ask you to strip math away from the equation at all and just think back to all the people that you know that have followed that advice. When I hear savings bonds, I think about my mom. I literally remember my mom had a stack of them. It was like one of my earliest financial memories is going into the closet where she kept them. This was like in the Reagan era. And she had these savings bonds. And I just remember looking at them and feeling like, wow, this is something like financial, right? But treasury bonds, like no one gets rich making treasury bonds.
No.
And most people don't like build wealth using treasury bonds. Now you might say, well, all right, well, I bonds, I just heard that they are now returning 9% or something like that.
Right.
That's great too. But I would say, like, if you're comfortable sort of putting your money in something that is slated to grow at 9%, which they can reevaluate and do reevaluate over time, you should also be comfortable taking the same sum of money and putting it into the stock market. So that's what I would say, but I don't have enough information to sort of help you make a decision. I don't know what sort of financial obligations you have to make, but I do think we know enough about investing. And if more than anything, I'm here to like help give you the courage to apply your own understanding, because I can see that you understand it based on the way that you phrase the question.
Yeah, definitely. And we're not financial advisors, but and it also depends on. I'm going to just preface with that, but it also depends on what your goals are, right?
Yeah.
So if your goal is to die with no money because you ain't got nobody to leave it to, so you gonna woo party, okay, so that's a different look than if you plan to build generational wealth, right? Like, we don't invest in bonds or anything that conservative because we're not planning to spend the money, but pass it on so that our grandkids can stay out of debt and things like that. So we're just going to continue investing aggressively with the money that's automatically put in, and aggressive to us are index funds, which some people feel are very conservative.
Yeah.
Because it ain't crypto. I don't invest in stuff I don't understand. And I don't understand crypto. So Greta asked, is Barista F.I.R.E similar to Coast F.I.R.E? Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Barista F.I.R.E gets its moniker because there are people who work specifically for health insurance or a benefits package. And so versus Coast F.I.R.E, which people are, they pursue a bunch of creative pursuits. They do gigs, they do this. It's kind of strung together. Barista F.I.R.E has the structure of a part-time job or something a little more solid that comes with benefits.
Yeah. And
it's the same thing.
If for all of you who are going to attend Exodus Summit this year and they're talking about money and making, $600,000 off of feet pics and stuff, hey, Rick's like, your feet are pretty.
That's where my mind goes when I hear I-bonds. Because I'm like, it's a lot of people putting $10,000 into an account that they can't touch for 2 years to make 9%, which is what, like $700, $800, something like that. It's like you could sell some feet pics or drive Uber for a couple months or sign up to cat sit or whatever and make that same money and put your $10,000 somewhere else. Or, there's just a lot of options that you can have. So it's really important not just to look at the risk side of the equation, but also the return side to see, is there like an income earning opportunity that I have that makes this investment look a little less sexy or practical or realistic for us?
The aha moment for us was the notion that whatever amount of money you have, assuming that you're above the, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, above just survival, right? I can't remember what you guys call it in the book. I'm looking back at my notes here. But once you get past that point, the notion that you can live on less than you bring in was remarkable. Like, that was an epiphany.
Yeah.
Because you spend that money, and then you use credit cards to do the stuff that you couldn't do with the other money because you were paying yesterday's bills, and then you use credit cards, to buy the stuff that you want now, to do the vacations, to live large, and to buy the Coach bag.
Yep.
That's the way I always thought it was supposed to be, because all of our bills were paid on time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They were paid on
They
time.
weren't paid off.
With like $100 towards American
But I
Express,
They weren't paid
and then
off.
$25 towards that Visa card, right?
Payment was payment, but it wasn't paid off.
It was not paid off. That was me. That was the scorecard I gave myself, where it's like, I'm financially savvy because I don't miss a payment every
Right?
day.
And the
Didn't matter that I had
the
13
credit card
payments.
companies were happy.
Yeah, I didn't miss not one payment,
Which was good for your credit score.
which was good for my credit score.
Yeah.
And
That's
it
right.
created this cycle. And I see a lot of people getting caught up in it now, especially now where, the interest rates keep raising. And so that minimum payment where you used to be able to afford to hit it every month is going to get a lot harder. And
Right.
I don't know. And again, like we were saying earlier, the financial wisdom that comes with age and having gone through a couple of cycles isn't there for people yet. And so I fear for the fact that so many people that have been using that as a scoreboard, like, oh, I make the payments every month, are going to struggle over the next couple of years, really, as minimum payments. Tomorrow's minimum payment ain't yesterday's minimum payment. Like it is going to change. It's going to change.
Yes, definitely. And speaking about wild optimism, I was just thinking about, the one thing that is preventing me from 100% enjoying the fact that we're here in Portugal, y'all, is that I still have to get my parents 100% settled. And they are 85% settled. And I'm not totally happy with the situation the way it is. But speaking about wild optimism, Mama Vincent is 82. And when we went over her finances with her to tell her why we were making the decisions that we were making for her, she's like, well, maybe I just need to find me another job.
Yeah.
You can't remember what happened on Tuesday.
I'm gonna tell
Rory needs to log in and defend herself.
I set up the iPad for her. She ain't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So she ain't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
But right, like you can't, like seriously, she's got a little bit of not dementia, but or Alzheimer's or anything, but just senility, right?
Memory issue.
Yeah.
And she thinks Denny's gonna hire her, and it's like you can't remember whose table you have to sit next, and is this really what you want to do? You're 82 years old. And like when I was having this conversation with her like 3 years ago, and she's like, well, I'm gonna ask for a raise and this and that. I said, Mom, you cannot work forever. Well, why not? Then COVID happened. And the extra money that she was bringing in on top of Social Security disappeared. And she never got the, unemployment. She did get the
stimulus.
She got stimulus stuff.
Got the stimmy.
She don't know what she did with it.
Oh no.
She doesn't know. She said, she does not know. She called me. She says, how come my bank account has a zero balance? I said, I don't know what you've been doing. Like, I don't spend your money.
Right.
I pay your bills. And so, that was my wake up call, like helping her these past 7 years. And then having that, our financial meeting with the financial advisor was just selling us insurance, really.
Yeah.
I was like, I am not going to be a welcome to Walmart person.
Yeah. I mean, she thought she was doing okay.
Yeah. And
because the question was asked, well, I'm okay.
I'm paying my bills.
I'm taking care of everything is taken care of. And then it's like, no, we subsidize you.
Correct.
You live
That's
because
a hard conversation.
we pay. Yeah. So
it's a very hard conversation.
It's a hard conversation.
We are dealing with that right now with Julian's mom, where like helping them understand what it's like you are doing okay because we subsidize in a world where we're not able or just can't.
Go ahead and add willing.
willing. I wouldn't say that
No, I'm just
about
saying
your mama.
that is a possibility. No, I know that is a possibility, right? We're talking about my mom. I don't foresee that being the issue, but that is certainly a possibility. And we obviously we talk about these things all the time. And it's a very sensitive issue, right? Because it rubs up against cultural and social norms, especially like for people of color, this is I gave birth to you. It is your right. In fact, you should take pride in your ability to take care of your mom.
Right.
But when you understand how this whole thing works and you start to act sort of outside of what's expected of you, and you're applying a different lens of analyzing it and different set of rules to sort of grow, it again creates conflict, right? It creates conflict, not just between you and your partner, right? Because, but there may be conflict also intergenerationally. And with respect to that sort of attitude that your mom sort of seemingly has, I think, the way that we've thought about it is it's almost like a sense of withdrawal, right? It's just like a sense of withdrawal. Like you've been living a subsidized life for decades. My mom has been living a subsidized life for decades.
Yes.
And so the moment that she has to stand on her own and she doesn't have that support, it's like, well, it can be a flood of emotions. Like I'm angry, I'm looking at you and I'm upset because you're taking a vacation and you got money to spend on nice things, but you don't have money to spend on me or mom or something like that. Like it's a very, very difficult issue. And a lot of people, millions of people in our country have lived lives that are subsidized by credit.
Or employment, right?
Or employment.
The total compensation is very different than your take-home salary. And so if you've been enjoying subsidized healthcare, if you've been enjoying a cafeteria, even something as small as free coffee in the morning, you don't know what it feels like to have to stand up and pay for your own healthcare, pay for your own coffee, decide if you really actually need that additional bagel in the morning. Like you're starting to figure out what is affordable.
Yes.
And that's a very tough exercise, which is why so many people write off FIRE as extreme frugality, extreme, sacrifice. And it's actually not. There is a process where you're weaning yourself, very similar to a caffeine addiction, a sugar addiction.
But we're so addicted to consumerism and spending money that, to your point, in the early stages of the FIRE movement sort of reaching the mainstream, one of the criticisms were that you were looking down on people that were making their own coffee, right? That's how deep the mania is, because the reality is having that. I remember being at work in these environments, having a cup of Starbucks was a status symbol. You know what I mean?
Yes. I remember that now.
Still is.
And it still is,
The
right?
line around
you would see that person
Okay.
oh man, what do you have, right? Whereas the person who made their own coffee was almost looked at as poor and downtrodden.
Same with the person who brought their lunch.
Or the sack lunch.
Or the sack lunch. You know what I mean?
That even in school. In school. I
correct.
remember
You can't afford to buy lunch. And it's I can't afford to buy lunch. But you know what I mean? But that's how deep these things are. You know what I mean? And so when people are, to Kiersten's point, sort of forced to stand up on their own, they really struggle because they've gone for decades, the vast majority of their lives, living a very different way. They have fully formed beliefs about what it means to do certain things. And the moment they are forced to live outside of that reality, it's really, really tough. But that's the world that we live in. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so important for people like us, literally, to have these kinds of conversations so that you can see what it looks like. You can see and hear our tone. You can see that we're regular people.
And you can hear about the pain points. Doing this doesn't remove you from the human experience of conflict with family members, or even internally, or bad days. It doesn't remove that from your life. It just removes the part where you're hustling for somebody else's approval so that you can have enough money to pay for groceries every month. It removes that aspect. But not
that feeling that you get around this time on Sunday when you got to go to that place the next day.
3:30.
Oh God.
3:30.
Oh,
I got to think about dinner. I got to think about tomorrow. I got to.
Oh, should I check my emails because I want to get in
ahead. Let me get ahead of it, and
And it's crazy to see how young it starts, because my son has it. My son has the Sunday scaries every Sunday, and he's been like this since it was a baby. He just gets anxious about the day. He's listless. He's kind of because he knows he has to go to school the next day. Like he
Right.
knows that the time where he can lounge around and eat what he wants and watch
It's
what he wants
done.
is
Right.
done. And it's been hard to watch him like go through this. And it's like, God, it starts at 5, it starts at 3. And here we are, 40, having gone through this with
Right.
no breaks. There's no breaks,
Yeah.
whether it's college or work or whatever you go to. Like, we deserve breaks. And part of the strategy allows you to plan them strategically and save for them,
Definitely.
just like your companies do.
I think there's two things that I get from this, and I'll let you ask that question in a second, because
Yes,
the red pill and the blue pill. So I was thinking about, you guys talk about the middle. I've got some friends that are like 4 more years, 1 more year, 6 more months. I know at least 2 people who are millionaires, and they're 2 more yearing or 6 more monthing it, and it's like, why? But it's because they remember a time when they didn't have, right? And one of the people I'm talking about, she's like, I remember being broke, and I don't ever want to feel that again.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, but like 4 million's not enough. At 70 plus years old, you still, like, how much is enough? But I guess it, I guess it depends on your lifestyle. So then we get into the middle versus the fast spender. So we've got this other client. He's a fast spender. When I heard that, I loved it. He's a fast spender. This man brings in so much money. We've never made 6 figures. We've never made 6 figures. Master's degrees, all that don't matter. Don't matter. Never. He's made probably close to 200,000 as long as I've known him.
Yeah.
Why are you coming to me asking me for some advice on how to handle your money when you've had all that money, right? And he's like, Halisi, I've made so much money. I said, I know. And you've spent so much money.
So much money.
So talk about the fast spender versus the middle and how one influences the other.
Yeah. So this was our attempt at trying to create labels to describe many of the people personas, I should say.
We don't like
for the people that we've met along the way. And so, there's the financially insecure, which are people who perpetually have more month at the end of their money. There are the fast spenders who are on the other end of the spectrum. These are a fascinating, unique set of people. We know many of them who earn gobs of money. These are the people that when you read the article that are living paycheck to paycheck despite earning $250,000 a year. But we're not shaming them, right? Because we actually see just how easy it is to do that. You're a VP at a company. You have to live in a certain area. You drive a certain kind of car. You have 2 kids that are both in a private school.
Like you have habits at the end of the how day, stressed you are.
Correct.
It takes a lot to wind you down.
Plus, you have to have a full-time nanny because you travel 50% of the year, right? So here it is. You're great. You have checked all the boxes. You've reached the highest level on the corporate ladder. But I actually have more money at the end of the month than you do, even though I'm 4 levels down on the organizational chart, right? So it's fascinating sort of dynamic when you think about it, at least for me. But then there's the middle, which is the vast majority of people that we're talking about. These are the people who have, in most cases, sort of risen from being financially insecure. They remember being broke and they don't want to go back. But they're also people who are very much motivated by what they see or perceive as real about the lives of the fast spenders. And so you see that person going on vacation and they're like, well, that's where I want to go.
Yeah, I gotta stay
when
there.
When it's time for us to take a break,
I gotta be on the side of the mountain.
We're going to go to the Four Seasons. You're not staying at the Holiday Inn. We're going to go to the Four Seasons. Because that's what,
and you gotta get the butler.
Now that's a vacation. But if you're going to go, like, you don't want to go and look broke, so you got to get the butler.
You got to get the first class or PJ. You gotta do the whole thing.
Correct.
Big.
You start to subscribe to beliefs like you have to look the part to get the part, right? So you want to be the VP, well, you got to look like the VP now. This is where the clothes comes in. This is where the car, you can't pull up in that same car because then they're going to see you as someone who's not ready to sort of take the next level. So now you basically have to pre-buy into a lifestyle or a perception in order to presumably gain access to this upper level. And what happens is it doesn't work for the vast majority of people. right? Like the vast majority of people will never be VPs or those upper level, even directors. The vast majority of people will never make it to that level. Organizations are not designed for everyone to get a shot at that, right? And so what happens is you have people who spend decades of their lives foregoing their own personal wellness, foregoing their own familial obligations, foregoing opportunities to be the type of parent that they want to be to their children, all for a shot at making it. And then they end up in the 40s and their 50s, and they're really, really struggling because they've got a really warped sense of what sort of making it looks like. And so what we're asking them to do is to take a hard look at all of those things and figure out what your enough is. Strip away all the things that don't really matter to you. Get rid of those things. Commit to saying this is enough. Like, we've had those tough conversations. Like, there is a point, believe it or not, where, like, if you take one more vacation, it's not fulfilling anymore because it creates more disruption,
luxury fatigue
to your life. And I've been there. Like, I literally, I can't see another seafood tower, right? Like, I don't want another seafood tower. I'm being honest. I'm at a point right now where I despise luxury. I'm sure I will come back around, but right now I don't want it. It's unfulfilling for me. It's awkward. It gets very awkward. It's weird. And I'm surrounded in most cases with people that I don't really want to be around. If I'm from just being honest, right? So these are the types of hard questions that we're really asking people to do, like through all of our content, but especially in the book, because most people that we know are in the middle. They're in this in-between stage where they are sort of motivated by their desires, but also like really trying hard not to fall backwards. And they struggle with just being consistent, right? And so we're sort of giving them a blueprint and saying, you're doing the right things, even though you're not receiving the types of, I guess, rewards that you thought you would be receiving. You just got to trust that, like, the real reward isn't going to come externally, or isn't going to come from the bling, or isn't going to come from some type of validation from anyone. It comes in your ability to address the things that really matter to you. You know what I mean? So, like, what's luxury? Luxury is my ability to be fully present with my son in Jamaica next week without any regard for who's emailing me for anything, because that doesn't matter. I get to fully be on a lazy river doing whatever I want. Luxury is not being able to be in some halfway cleaned suite in Montego. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, I'm not paying for that anymore. You know what I mean? We've done that. We've been there, and it's like, great. You know what? This middle area actually feels good for me. And for some people, you may say, well, I don't know about all that.
But
I'm always going to stay at those levels.
That's actually what we give permission for people to do. Like, that's kind of what differentiates our approach to FIRE and the benefits, going back to Coast FIRE, Barista FIRE. You get permission to go all in on the things that you love. Once you've done the work and eliminated all the things that are just kind of like, yeah, it was fine. And you just have what's left is like, these are the things that I love. You actually have the opportunity and the budget left over, because you've cut all this stuff out, to go all in on it. So you like travel? Well, travel for 3 weeks and see how much you like it. You may learn that, like, okay, actually the sweet spot for us is 10 days.
Yes.
And it's split between mountain and country and urban, or it's this and that. But so many of us, to the point of the middle, have never actually invested in the things that we really, really enjoy. And all we do is look to the fast spenders to indicate what the next level of that for us is, when really you could already be at it and you just don't do it enough.
Yeah.
You could already enjoy your neighborhood. You just don't get to spend enough time in it. And so you don't need to move to a different house. You just need to find a different routine in your neighborhood that allows you more outdoor space or whatever it is that you're looking for. And so it's little things like that. And when you free up your budget, you now have the ability to stress test and pressure test all of the areas and the categories to figure out, like, what actually matters. And that is far more informative to a retirement planning and how much money you think you'll need for the rest of your life than any calculator out there. You can look at your retirement savings and know, I'm good with this amount because I know the things that I value. As long as those things are relatively free or affordable, then I'm fine. I don't need to base my retirement amount off of what I've been spending this whole time that I've been in corporate America.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Y'all, if you have questions, because we are going to wrap this up in a minute, please put a Q in front, because I know you guys like to help each other out, and I see you talking to each other. You had a question.
No, I was going to say, to me, fire is like taking the red pill. This is a Matrix reference.
Yeah.
And continue to do the same things is like taking the blue pill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same thought whenever we went down a whole rabbit hole when that last Matrix went out. And I was like, man, if I'd seen this, I think what she did.
I did.
She was like, man, I wish I'd seen this movie and understood this.
I wish
I would
I'd
have
understood
appreciated
it.
the movie so much more
Right.
if I had had this knowledge, because that's exactly what it is. You start to realize that, like, where the idea for that film came from. It came from a recognition of this dynamic of society, what I mean? And that's exactly what they were sort of showing people. And to your point, that's exactly what sort of understanding and embracing financial independence as a way of life is all about.
Yes.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I have been sleeping the first 50 years of my life. And I thought I had it all figured out because, and I so didn't. I just didn't. Are more Black people now embracing the FIRE movement? By the way, because you said, Julien, mainstream, and I don't know that it's mainstream yet. By the way, I saw your FIRE starter video and it stayed with me.
Aww.
Yeah, I do think
I was wearing this shirt, I think, during that video.
I think you were. And I'm being super proud. I'm super proud of our contributions to helping to make it more visible and accessible to more people around the world. I do think that more people know what it is. Again, we've been doing this a long time, and we've been sort of like at the forefront, and we've got a pretty good relationship with the media. So I feel like our pulse check in terms of like whether or not people are embracing it more or not is pretty on point. And I will say, yes, I do think more people are embracing it. I think you're going to see, and I'm telling you, 10 years is going to be very, very interesting to see because we're going to have so many like free agents, like between the ages of 35 and 55. And I think that is going to be the trigger. This is my second prediction. This is going to be the trigger that you're going to see a flood of progress in terms of social justice issues. Because right now,
I understand.
So many of the people, our best and our brightest, are busy at work. They don't have time to pay attention to the issues in their local neighborhood. They don't have time to pay attention to nationwide issues. It's not going to be until they can afford to speak the truth, until they can afford to walk away, that they then start to be a little bit more vocal and use their power, their voice,
network,
and their capital to shape the world that they live in, not just for their own benefit, but for the benefits of their children. Right now, they're still playing the game that, not yet, which is why you see so much, in part, why so many people are still holding on. But I think about 10 years, you're going to start to see a flood of well-capitalized, energetic, talented people sort of saying, I'm done taking all of this energy and pouring it into the workplace. I'm going to pour it into these issues. And I'm more excited about that than anything else, because I think it's going to have huge impact in terms of Black America and the issues that are relevant to us.
It definitely could. What is our macro economy going to look like with so many folks leaving the workforce?
I do not know. I've not given that much thought, primarily because I look as optimistic as I am about there being more Black financially independent people in the world 10 years from now. The reality is consumerism is such a vicious, it's such a vicious and powerful force that it's just going to make up for whatever is lost. I don't, which also as a index fund investor is quite favorable to me, because
we need people to buy stuff
from that standpoint. But from a social standpoint or a macroeconomic standpoint, I don't foresee a world where we're going to see that much disruption. I think
we'll see change in the employment model. I think Bloomberg just did a survey where 78% of CEOs and business leaders plan to take on more contract and freelance employees. And so people who can afford to work on a project basis, where it's like, look, I can't pay you for 100 years. I'm not going to give you a career, But if you want to come
Right.
in for 9
Right.
months and help us get this project over the line for,
Mhm.
you know, $130,000, like we can have that kind of arrangement. And so
Right.
people who are used to, again, hitting aggressive timelines because you got something else to do, or you're only doing this because it funds your winter trip, those types of people who are not looking for like all of this stuff from employers will do well in, I think, the new labor model.
Okay.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I think the this latest pandemic. Gosh, did I say latest pandemic? I'm trying not to put that in, that there's going to be another one, but chances are there is, because we haven't handled this too well. But I think it has taught I don't think employers have really learned the lessons, but employees have.
Yes.
And my son is a perfect example. When they were calling him back, he's like, "Nah, I'm good, because y'all ain't offering no more money." And I was like, "But you owe me rent." And then he started saying that his manager was talking, he has dreadlocks, that his manager was saying stuff about his hair. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Mm,
So
Yeah.
find something else. Find
Yeah.
something else. Because I'm
Yeah.
not, because I don't want to catch a case and have to go up there.
Yeah.
He's too old for mama to show up. But Mama Bear still comes out a little bit. All right. Like, so then, all of the people that they didn't hire started freelancing.
Yeah.
And because the organization is now owned by private equity, I think that was their goal all along.
Of course.
And they're just passing those costs off to the client, because
Yes.
now my son, instead of making what was he making, like $18 an hour, now he's making $30 to $50 an hour to do the same thing.
Which is what he was always making. But when you look at total compensation, when you look at the fact that they got to now shave off, your job is worth $30 to $50 an hour, but they have to shave off the subsidizing of your healthcare. They got to
Right.
shave off the match that they give you. They got to shave off the fact that you are in this break room that's air conditioned and has free coffee. And so what's left is what's in your paycheck. It's not the value of your job
Or your work.
left after they've already said all the things that get you to come in
Right.
is the $18, right? And so like when you realize as a contract employee and you figured out like how to manage these other costs in your life, whether it's healthcare or food costs or equipment costs, when you figured all that stuff out and you get like the actual value of your job, it can be more lucrative for you than a traditional type of employment, which is why so many people opt into like, I'll just be a contractor. I don't get any of the employee loyalty stuff. I don't get the t-shirt and I can't go to the all hands. But when my paycheck hits, it's significantly larger than what it would have been if I was a full-time employee.
And for younger people with no pre-existing, Obamacare is affordable.
Oh gosh.
Especially when you, right? Like when you can apply for it while in between the jobs, right? And then the next year round, then you've got to, tell them what you made, freelancing, though. It can be very, very affordable.
It can be very affordable. When an employer won't subsidize it because you're unemployed or underemployed or between jobs, the government will subsidize it for you. And so you can find again, assuming you're young, no pre-existing conditions, all the fine print of insurance, you can find a plan as low as $10 a month.
You really can.
And a lot of people don't know this. They don't even look. They just
look.
Continue to let healthcare be the thing that keeps them employed. And that's a good reason for a lot of people who have conditions and absolutely need the coverage of insurance. But for a lot of people who are able to take the risk, it's actually, again, to your point about things being accessible that weren't there before, there's a woo there. Where like, if you know the system enough, you can get the government to cover your health insurance while you figure out what it is you need to do.
Yep. Mine is $54 a month. Any suggestions on how to invest cash liquid sitting in a regular bank? Yeah, that was me, Layla.
Yeah. Again, disclaimer, not financial advisors. The answers to this really depends on your risk tolerance. Right. The first suggestion that's pretty low risk, but has a reasonable reward is move it into a high yield savings account. A lot of the banks have started to increase the percent that you get.
Right.
3%.
Yeah, it's up to like 2.1, I think Ally is giving now. And it'll
Yep.
continue to increase as the Fed continues to try to slow inflation. Banks will give you incentives to keep your money in there so that they can invest it.
Of course. Hello.
So there's that. So move some of it to a high yield savings account. If you don't have a emergency fund, set aside some to kind of beef up your emergency fund since the inflationary period and the impending recession is coming. Like, you want to make sure that you have enough cash should your income be disrupted. And then our standard investment advice is total stock market index funds. They are what 99% of our portfolio is in.
Yeah.
You can open any sort of brokerage account to do this. You can do Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Ally. Any of the big guys will allow you to open an account and put as much or as little, with the exception of Vanguard, as much or as little as you want into those accounts.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about Vanguard. Yeah. I think 2,500 for their normal one.
Yeah.
To get started. But Layla, I'm sure you have that. And that's what we did. We took all except for about $10,000 and put it in the stock market. And also depends on how fast you might need that money. So if you're going to need it in the next year or two for something like a car purchase or a down payment, then you might not want to invest it. Investment's really for the long term, 5 to 10 years minimum. Oh, look at this. Hey, Professor.
Thank you.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. This gives some knowledge this Christmas.
Yes. For the person who has everything except their time. Give them a copy of the book.
So yes, definitely. Yes, I started to rewatch it. Oh, I think they're talking about your movie. Firestarters is on YouTube. Okay. Any more questions? Because we are going to wrap this up. We're almost at 2 hours, y'all. And I can't believe, where's your son? Is he watching a movie or something?
Yeah, he's doing good. He is earning this ice cream sandwich that he's about to get. Or pizza or whatever it is.
This is like free babysitting. Y'all want to talk next Sunday?
I thought we were going to get to meet him.
Oh, you can meet him?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Do y'all get nervous about the stock market crashing and losing your money? The bank feels safer. So Lily Bell, I don't know if you were on earlier when we were talking about going through 2001, going through 2008 crash, going through the down market in 2012, 2013. Julian and us, I think Kiersten's a little younger, definitely remember and were invested back in those days. And my story was I was too stupid or uninformed to know what to do with the money or like what the ramifications were. So I let it ride. And thank God I did, because that is the bulk of our saving or our portfolio right now. It grew so much.
The history of the stock market is it will bounce back. It always has. And if you're squeamish on the amount of money being lost on the stock market, don't look at it.
Just keep
leave it alone. Don't look at it. Don't we watch CSNBC and we watch all these different things as newbies in dealing with the stock market, but we don't really understand it, and they scare the hell out of you with all their talk. I mean, one of the biggest things that you'll always hear, as soon as the Feds open their mouth about anything, the stock market drops.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's
it goes down.
Whatever they say, it kind of drops a little bit. So you just can't be nervous. You can't be worried about is my money, and wanting to run and pull your money out. Because the thing about the stock market is you don't lose money until you sell. When you sell low, you lose.
You lose. And Black people tend to do that. They buy high, they sell low, and then they say, see, it doesn't work. Again, if you need the money now, then a bank is probably a better bet.
Don't do the stock market.
There's a little man, but if you've got 10 years, then let it ride. Historically, 10 years is about when 100% of folks historically have gotten a return on their money. He is so cute.
Thank you.
You think so too, don't you?
I do. He's a handful, but he is a cutie.
Losing it over here.
Yeah,
Don't jump on that, buddy. Don't jump on it. Don't jump on it.
So let's see if we have any last questions before we close out. Y'all, please hit the like button, subscribe to Rich and Regular. I was about to say Our Rich Journey. Yeah.
I'm sure y'all have y'all met them yet?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we did their 365 Days to F.I.R.E. We had done 2. So they introduced us to F.I.R.E. We had never heard of it. And we started watching them. I only watched their Portugal videos. I wasn't interested in that. What are they talking about? Stocks and stuff? I don't know. I don't know about that. But I want to move to Portugal, so I'm going to watch that. And then they snuck some F.I.R.E. information into one of their Portugal videos. I was like, retired by 39. That's interesting. Never made 6 figures. That's interesting. And the wife, Christina, I was about to call her Kiersten, was not working half that time.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
To me.
One
of the folks I was talking about. Hey, Arthur, time for you to retire. We love you.
Yeah, no, we remember meeting them. We had one conversation. At least I did. I think Kiersten's back in case he was still working. But yeah, like they in many ways represent I think part of like one of the other paths, right? Like the path of becoming, an expat. And I think at the time, as someone who studied abroad twice in college, and as I think about the growth of even like the Black travel movement, like this is what I mean by like between these sort of subcultures, the Black travel movement, the sort of rise of Black expats, the tiny house movement, all of these little things I think are in response to the pressure that a lot of people are feeling. They're all kind of kissing cousins. And I'm just excited to see more of us sort of getting into it and getting creative and feeling at home, regardless of the path that we get here. I think so many times we get caught up in sort of trying to follow these prescribed paths, but everybody's path is different. And I think they're a great example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And made our retirement possible, because my question was, and this is a question you can ask yourself, folks in the audience, hey, where can you live on the money you have? Right. Like when I had to retire because my dad had dementia and I was taking care of him and somebody was going to die. Yeah. Either he was going to die because I was going to kill him, or I was going to kill myself because I was stressed out, working 70 hours a week, right? From home, and he's in the next room. I'm on a Zoom. Here he comes asking questions, looking all in the I mean, it was just so stressful. So I had to retire. I call it like an accidental retirement. I didn't have really a choice if I wanted to live. So then the question is, where can we live off of one Social Security check? Because the money in our investments account we ain't touching that. So where can we live? I can live in Lisbon because I always wanted to live abroad. Now, some people may look at our apartment and go, I'm like, yes, this is so much more than I ever expected. Right. Yeah. So I guess it's all relative, but one way to get to Coast F.I.R.E, guys, is to locate yourself in a place that you can live how you want to live for the amount of money you got coming in.
A friend of mine who I've known for over 10 years. She was a social worker, I believe. She did not earn an incredibly high income. She's a very creative woman. And so she's always like earned money doing side creative projects. She has a daughter. She was married, got a divorce. Like, she's gone through some ups and downs, but she's stayed consistent. And she just got her student loans forgiven. Earlier this year. Like, so she did all the right things, right? Like, she worked for that company. She stayed on top of it. Like, she submitted the paperwork, and she still, even up until the day it happened, she was just kind of like, I don't know if this is really going to work. And then she did it, and then it worked. Cool. And now she's in Panama.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
All
it.
right. All
She's like, you know
right.
what? Like,
Yes.
she's like, I've done my part, right? She's fulfilled her
Yes.
obligation. She was like, I have helped hundreds and thousands of people. Now it's time for me to focus on what's good for me. Her daughter is older. She's not
Right.
tied to this relationship anymore.
Mhm.
And she's making it work, right? And she was also surprised at the number of Black people. Like, she feels very comfortable there. She was like, they think I'm from here because she looks like that. She was like, I don't look like a foreigner at all.
Right.
It's just like I live in a certain part of a neighborhood in Brooklyn, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
or in DC.
Mhm.
Except I'm actually here and the water is right there. And so
Right
she's
there.
enjoying herself in Panama City. She's
I
now
love it.
owning property, and she's
Awesome.
doing great.
Wow.
So I love to see
See?
more of us doing it, because again, like, even if you don't do it forever, like if we're just talking about uncertain
5
times,
years.
we're going through uncertain period, like you consider relocating to a place like Panama or Lisbon or Mexico City or something like that, and you say, this is what I'm going to do for the next 5 years. Just that it could be enough. Even if we're not, obviously we're talking about expats, but like just moving to a lower cost of living, like just that
Yes.
one
Yeah.
thing could be the huge difference maker in your
Yeah.
long-term financial future. So if
Yep.
you're uncertain about it, if you're just willing to overcome that discomfort or that hump, I think that could be more than enough to help really get people to heal from some things,
Yes.
or
Thank
just sort of
you.
disconnect from the mania. Like, we're obviously going through a huge political season right now. This is one of the
It's just gonna
reasons
get worse
that
with
made
the
us
presidential
It's
election.
one of the reasons why we took the long honeymoon that we did back in 2015. It was like every time, it's the worst part of
Right.
America. And so you owe it to yourself, I think, to overcome the hump. Like,
Detox.
other people have
Yeah.
done it. You
You
won't be
have
the
to.
first, and hopefully you won't be the last.
So do y'all have any plans to move abroad?
Uh,
Inquiring minds want to know.
to be location independent, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. I don't know if we'll ever go to the extent of moving abroad, but it could. I wouldn't rule it out at all.
I think we will. I think it'll be forced because I think our son will want to live abroad. I just think he's like, when he thinks about college and continuing education, he's going to want to learn something
Right.
in a place that's not like a classroom.
Yeah.
And so I could see us following him.
Okay.
Right.
We want to see you. We want to see you out here in these international streets on
I
a
would
more
love it.
permanent
I think I'm
basis.
more open to it than Julian.
What?
It's usually like that. But I mean, Julian, as the son of immigrants, it would seem like this would be second nature. Do you have a Jamaican passport?
I do not, but so it's not that I'm against the idea. It's that I'm also just thinking about Mama, because we're primary caretaker. Well, not primary caretaker, but we financially support her, and there's a lot of value in that proximity. And so, like, being away, that's the hump that I need to overcome. Is like being further away from her, because I know she relies on
I understand.
us, and
Tell
pretty
him,
much
please.
like this is her life. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if we leave, I just feel like she'll just wither up like a leaf. She won't know what to do. And
I
so,
understand. I don't think my mom got out of the bed yesterday, y'all. Real talk.
yeah. No.
Well, no, wait. Today's Sunday, so she got out of bed today because she went to church.
Yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, real talk. Like, you just gonna abandon me, huh?
Yeah. I know. It's like, it's almost like, I remember one time we got into an argument and she sort of threw that out there. Like, that was a possibility. Like, she's just waiting for that day, because again, we are well traveled and very mobile. So she was like, well, just don't take my baby away from me. I'm like, well, I mean, first of all, we owe it to ourselves to do whatever we want. Like, it's not an act of, sort of like doing something against you. It's just us saying, this is what we want to do for our lives. But again, she has also spent her entire life struggling and working. She's not really had time to cultivate interests or community or any of those other things. And so her life is us and that little boy right there. And so if we leave, it would probably be devastating for her. So.
Or she'll need to come with you.
Or she would, right? Which,
And interestingly, so my mom was a television producer. So she had a very interesting life. And was able to have the extra money to cultivate and do all of that financial flexibility. Never got past that. Never got past financial flexibility. And if y'all don't know what we're talking about, read the book. But to see how going from, the equivalent of $165,000 a year, which is what she was making in the 80s and 90s, the equivalent of, if you, for inflation, to now, like her saying Denny's is too expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the reality. What are your thoughts, investments, funds in military contractors? I'm assuming I think you mean investing in companies that contract with the military.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that's what you mean. Let us know in the chat.
We don't do it. We don't have any single holdings. I'm sure there are some defense contractors in the S&P. I don't even know all of the companies in the S&P 500, but I'm sure there are some. But we don't like individually invest in like a Raytheon. Is Raytheon a defense contractor?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But the response would be, so no, we don't do that. Nor do we even dig that much into the details of it. We could be invested in some right now, wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But if you are in a position where you are justifiably so, like against being a part of the problem by, let's say you don't like guns, or you're fully against gun violence, but somehow a gun manufacturer or something like that is incorporated into this fund, and as a result, like you feel morally conflicted, there are options for you. Like, don't let that be the obstacle that stops you from deciding to invest in your financial future. So there are a variety of things. You've got a number of what they call ESG funds that would allow you to sort of solve for some type of social justice issue. I'm just going to throw out one recommendation or company, which is Betterment, which is a robo advisor that does a pretty good job of offering funds that allow people to sort of invest, but also be focused on, let's say, things like women-led companies, or companies that achieve certain diversity initiatives, or if you're passionate about issues that positively impact the Black community, you've got funds that are available for you, or portfolios that you can invest in that are designed to do just that. So like there are all kinds of investment options that are out there. I would say ESG as a category might be something that you would look into, but there's also a cost associated with that. And so you've got to, all of these are very personal decisions. You could say, like we do, I'm going to prioritize minimizing cost, and then I'm going to build out my own giving strategy, which is where we are in our point right now. Like, we are deeply passionate about fighting food insecurity in the U.S. 1 in 4 families are struggling with food insecurity. In some major cities like DC and Philadelphia, it's as bad as 1 in 3. And so for us,
oh my, really? Is that where we're at now?
That's where we at, right? And so that's how we felt when we came across this task, because like
1 in 3 college students
fighting hunger felt like something that I hadn't heard since the 80s.
Right.
And so here we are dealing with these things. And so as much as we talk about building wealth and starting businesses, and quite honestly how well we're doing, like, we don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that so many people are struggling. So for us, I make as much money as I can, and then we give as much as we can without any other complicated investment options available. So all that to say, like, it's another approach. You don't have to sort of build in the feel good tactics into your investments. You could just say, you know what, that doesn't feel good and I don't support that, but I'm gonna take this money and I'm gonna give it and use it
in a way that feels
in a way that does feel good, or sort of offsets it. It's like my carbon footprint sort of offset.
There you go.
That's how I'm dealing with it. So.
I love it. Well, we have started a Facebook group, guys, at your request, Fire Over 50.
Yeah.
So it is official. Y'all got to join. You asked for it, so we created it. So it's on Facebook, Our Black Utopia Fire Over 50. If you just type in Fire Over 50, it should come up, and the link should be in the description. Someone asked about the book. The link is in the description. Of course, the link is in the description. Come on, y'all. And and it's also, I think, like right there. So I will put it's in the chat. So if you scroll back up to the top, it's in the chat as well, and you can just click on that. And so we are going to wrap it up. Please give a thumbs up, like, subscribe. Also subscribe to Rich and Regular, listen to their podcast, Money on the Table, their YouTube program, as well as read their book. So
get the book.
You got to get the book. And I personally would say the audio. I actually, when I read these nonfiction books, I like to listen to the audio, then buy the hard copy so I can write my notes. I was that
I avoid audio. That's a good strategy, just to buy it twice.
Right. That there you go. That was my kind of like, dedicated student tactic. So it works. It works. And it is that kind of book. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to take notes, right? So we love you guys. Thank you so much. How would you like to wrap up this conversation? What would you like our audience to walk away with?
Look, I'm sure you guys talk to like smart people all the time. But I would end on a very similar note to what we just said. Like there's so many reasons to want to build wealth. But I'll take you back to, I believe it was the mid 1960s, MLK, and he was arrested, one of many times in which he was arrested. And he was slated to serve about a week in jail, or he had the option to pay the fine. He's a man of principle. It was him, Ralph David Abernathy, John Lewis, and a few of the other sort of cohorts who were part of his team. And they decided to do the time instead. But even still, they didn't get a chance to do it because they were bailed out by an anonymous donor. And the bail was something around $70 at the time. Again, this was the mid 1960s. And so when you think about that, and then you adjust for inflation, and you were like, well, how much would that bail have been a day? It's upwards of like $1,500, somewhere in that ballpark. It begs the question, which of us could have afforded to bail him out? Who can afford to sort of shape the world that we want to be? And so I would say, aside from being able to buy nice things, aside from being able to send your kids to college, one of the most powerful things that you can do, or I think justifiable reasons for why you should pursue building wealth and make it a priority in your life, is so that you can be the anonymous donor. You can be the person that helps to shape the world and shape your local community. I spend, just in the last month, I've spent hours just being a part of my son's PTA. It's been one of the most fascinating experiences of my life.
I'm sorry. Did you have to deal with the Karens of the world?
Oh, yeah. But I'm actually enjoying the experience because I have the time to do it.
And no emails waiting for you.
And to contribute to my son's learning experience and to be able to shape my community. And so it's been a very fulfilling experience for me. I probably won't do it forever, but I know most people don't have the time or opportunity to do those kinds of things. And so just little things like that, I know I am single-handedly contributing to my son having a positive experience. And so between us being able to serve or provide around 8,000 to 10,000 meals just through our book tour alone to people in need, like this is why it's so important. Not just because we get to go on vacation, not because we partner with Success Magazine or any of those other things. It's those reasons. And I would say for everyone else that's listening, like there are issues that are important to you. There are issues that are shaping your community right now, but you just can't quite do it because you don't have the time. And so that's what this is about. It's about earning that freedom of time to be able to do the things that are going to outlive you.
I had a different one.
Oh, I know you were going to get two. You could have just co-signed, but okay.
I could have, but I thought you were going to go a different direction.
Oh.
I wanted to leave people with the same thing that we left the people who attended our book tour. There was a theme throughout, and we talked a lot about the issues that we've covered today. But one of the things that we left people with was this idea that it is entirely possible to be living through a revolution and not know it. Right? Okay. If you're a student of history, you know now that what was happening was the civil rights movement. You know now what was happening was a feminist movement. You know now that what was happening was equal rights for gay marriage and for all of these other progressive things that we now celebrate and live in. The same thing could be happening right now. We are without question in the middle of a financial revolution, right? You've got crypto and new currencies and new regulations created every single day. We're in the middle of a technological revolution with AI and and the amount of digital warfare and hacks and biochemical issues that we're covering globally.
Mhm.
And we're in the midst of a labor revolution, right? Like what
Mhm.
you're experiencing right now, where people are walking away from their jobs and
Quiet quitting.
Mhm.
yes, all of this language.
Right.
It's an attempt to try to describe. That's what writers do, right? Writers are responsible for making sure
Right.
people don't forget what
Mhm.
happened. And it's your job to come up with a word or a phrase or language to describe what's happening. And so if you think about the time like this, if you're somebody who needs a fire lit up under their, ASS,
Patootie.
patootie, thank you. Think of it like that, where in 10 years, these babies, like my son, tweens right now, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they will look back and remember this time very differently
Mhm.
than what
Right.
we consider normal, right? In the same
Yeah.
way that it was
Right.
very normal for my parents to walk into the back door of a restaurant when they were little kids.
Right.
Beau will never know that. He'll never know the
Yes.
life of being chained to a cubicle 40 hours a week. It just won't exist.
Or accepting that you're going to be paid on average.
Yeah, 58
pennies on the
cents to a
dollar.
dollar. That's
Right.
not,
Right.
This is our struggle, and we're living through it right now. It's just, this
yeah.
is the 1960s in 4K. And
Yeah.
so,
I like that. The
Yeah.
1960s and 4K.
yeah. So,
Interesting.
these are all, I think, better reasons to pursue and achieve financial independence than just
Yes.
the ability to buy nice things. And
Yes.
so that's what we're hoping to remind people or to leave them with.
I love it.
Awesome.
If you guys can hang on, we're going to say goodbye. Y'all, this has been an adult conversation. I hope you've
Definitely.
hung with us through these 2 hours. We have touched on everything from mamas to babies and everything in between. We love you guys. Thank you so, so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, we will see you next week. Next week, we will be talking about all things Portugal because I know you guys are chomping at the bit. And somebody was talking about Rossini in this apartment. He did a great job,
He
didn't
did a
he?
fantastic
His
job.
link is down in the description as well. And Piggy Girl Travels will be coming back next week as well because I think we're going to do live twice next week. We'll see.
You're the boss.
We'll see. All right, fam. We love you. See ya.
All
Bye.
right,
Bye.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.